Hello, and thank you for joining me again today on the Finding Hope After Loss podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. If you like the show, please leave a review or rating on Apple or Spotify. It only takes a moment and really helps the show reach more loss and infertility families. I am starting a new segment on the show which allows lost parents to come on and talk about whatever they want for 5 minutes. Do you have something you want to promote? Do you want to talk about an organization that's been helpful to you? Maybe you want to complain about something in your life or talk about something good that's happened in your life. I am leaving it open. If you're interested, please reach out to me at sarah@journeyforjasmine.com or reach out to me on any of my social media at journeyforjasmine. Today I am talking with Jenn. She lost her twin girls at 32 weeks when they were stillborn. She is now a certified life coach who helps stillbirth moms let go of guilt, process their grief, and figure out what's next for their future. Hello, everyone. Today I am here with Jenn. Jenn, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, yes, my name is Jennifer Sen, and I am, oh gosh, I am a hairstylist by trade. I've been a salon and spa owner for 15 years. I sold that. I went into business coaching, and now I actually have taken my love of coaching and my love of making women feel good inside and out, and am coaching in a space that's very close to my heart because of my experience, and that is stillbirth lost moms.
I love that you've taken that, because definitely doing hair and all of that is definitely such it is like a self-care thing that we do for ourselves. Like I always feel so relaxed whenever I get to go get it done. So I think it's interesting that you started out with that and then kept it going with the taking care of people aspect of it.
Yeah, and it was such a natural transition because if you think about the time you spend with your hairstylist, lots of times it's a glorified coaching session,
Yeah.
right? You're telling them all the things you guys, I mean, you're discussing things that lots of times my clients wouldn't with anyone else. So I do love that. It's such a natural fit, and I love that I get to work in this space that I found to be very lacking when I was going through it. Yeah.
So do you mind sharing a little bit about your last story?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny when I looked at the date today, I realized I am coming up on my 25th anniversary of the loss of my twins. That was happened on November 5th. So 25 years ago today, I thought there was nothing wrong. In fact, the week of my appointment, my doctor said that I was a textbook pregnancy for twins. I remember those words. And then just a few short days later, everything came crashing down. But my husband and I were married for 9 years. We had two little boys. They were 5 and 3. And so we wanted another child, maybe a girl. And so we were thrilled when we thought we were going to have this grand finale to our family of twin girls. And yeah, I mean, everything went really pretty smoothly until the 32nd, until I was 32 weeks. And it was right around Halloween. And so as we do, as I know we've all done, once you have your loss, you start going back and trying to find all the spots that you can blame yourself and all of the things that you shouldn't have done that would have changed this outcome. But I took my boys trick-or-treating, and I was tired, of course, but you're 32 weeks pregnant with twins and you're trick-or-treating, and it's just tiring. So then that night, actually, I think it was, I don't know that I noticed it that much that night, but the next day, I was like, I just don't feel like I've felt them move. And when you have two, I mean, you're that far along anyways. And then certainly when you have two, their personalities. There was one that had hiccups more. There was one that was more active. They're just so then to not have any movement was really alarming. So it was, let's see. So yeah, the next morning I called and they were, my doctor's office was like, well, it's probably fine, but why don't you come in at 2 and we'll do a sonogram. And my husband was at work. So he worked at the hospital, which was down the street from my doctor's office, but I just let him know that I was going to be going. And so I went and had my sonogram and you can tell by the look on their face. You can tell when they go get the doctor. You can tell when the doctor comes in, you just know. So he sent me to the hospital to have like a higher resolution sonogram, which is where my husband was. So he met me there and then it just, it all spirals from there. I was in due, they really wanted me to deliver them naturally because then you're not also recovering from surgery. You're not also recovering from C-section. So I did 3 days of induction. And looking back, I don't know. There were blessings in that. There were a couple nurses who were so amazing and so wonderful to come and hold my hand and be with me. I can't imagine what my poor husband did that whole time, being torn between being with me and being home with our boys. And, you know, it just was so, that was so crazy, but it was what they felt was best. So that's what I did. And so I did 3 days of induction. At the end of the third day, I it is a small hospital. My husband works at the hospital, and I picked my dream team at 11:30 at night. I said, I want this doctor, I want this anesthesiologist, I want this person here. I gathered my dream team and they delivered them late at night. So it was just a really long, it's just a really long, long process. And then you begin the process after that of all the things that happen and what you have to do, and it's just such an out of body experience. So yeah, that was kind of
I can't imagine, it's hard enough as it is, but like going through 3 days of induction and, knowing what the outcome will be. I mean, I can't, my labor was, it did go overnight, but yeah, it's just hard. Like
so
it's
and
hard
it
to put into words.
and it's so strange. Like I get teary thinking about it now, and that's it's been 25 years, but it's still right there. And you just when I think about the my family who came and just sat there and looked at me and didn't know what to say. And there was nothing to say. There was nothing good that was going to come out of any of it. It just was, I don't know, that whole process was so strange, but yet, I mean, I ended up having a cesarean at the end, anyways. I suppose there there were things that I needed to take from that experience that I did, but it was a long one.
Yeah, and I think that nobody can ever prepare you for what comes after you hear those words. I mean, I'm kind of like I just went in it like you, like I just knew like okay, she's gone. But after that, I'm like, what happens now? Like, how does she come out? Like, like, do I have to have a C-section? Is it natural? Like, what, because obviously they don't just disappear out of you, but I think nobody like really prepares you for that.
Well, and that's what I think I love about your podcast. It is like it's just there is no handbook that says, well, now you do this and then you do this and then you hear all of, I mean, look at how many episodes you've done where every single story is so completely different and no one hands you this handbook. And I don't even know if you would look for one in that moment. I don't even know. I don't know
Yeah. I feel like
what
you're right. Like we don't seek out like what to do if something goes wrong because we're like, no, no, that's not going to happen to me. That happens to other people.
well, that's yeah, like we chatted about that the other day. Like, we read what to expect when you're expecting, and we're in Pinterest and we Google these things and we get so ready to bring this live baby home. And even if we did have a book about, well, here's what you do on the off chance that you have a stillbirth loss, no one's reading it. No one ever
Right.
wants to even entertain that possibility. But here you are. Here you are in like the most raw, vulnerable, horrible low point of your whole life, likely, most likely. And there's nothing. You don't know what to do. You are just living and barely breathing minute to minute. And it's a terrifying feeling.
Do you feel like your medical team overall was supportive? I mean, I know that you picked the ones you wanted, but like, do you feel that they did help support you through it?
100%. Yes. I mean, I loved them. They were so amazing. I trusted completely that whatever their reasons were the right reasons. So yes, that is something so important, I think, too, is to have your medical team that you trust no matter what happens, because they were exactly the people that I needed and wanted in that situation, as much as I did when they delivered my boys, who were perfectly healthy and strong and everything was fine.
So did you deliver then you have a rainbow baby, is that correct? Did you
I,
deliver her at the same hospital?
I did.
Was
I
that
did.
difficult for you?
Terrible. Yes. I mean, you know that whole pregnancy is a tough one. And then, but again, the same medical team, they were so amazing after in my pregnancy after loss, because they knew my fear. They were more than willing at any time if I called and just said I need to see it. I need to see her. I need to take a look. They were fine with just having me stop in and get a heartbeat check or quick sonogram or something to ease my mind. That was amazing. That was so valuable. But yeah, then all of a sudden and she was a planned C-section. And she was born 3 days before the 1 year anniversary of my twin step.
Oh, wow.
So it was a lot going on in 1 year. But yes, so they were really, really wonderful about any of my concerns. And then you find yourself again in the same OR with pretty much the same dream team. They were pretty much all there. And you're just like, yeah, just that moment of holding your breath, waiting for them to say everything's fine. Everything's fine. And yeah, yeah, it does. It really it's so amazing what we can just get ourselves through, right?
It
Yeah.
really is. Sometimes you look back and you're like, how did I
Sometimes
do
I know.
that?
Sometimes when you look back, you're like, how did I do that?
And sometimes you're like, why did I do that? No, I'm
How
like,
would I have done that? Yeah.
I think there's just that part of us though, like we leave empty-handed and we don't have our baby and we just even when we have other living children at home, it's like that was just ripped from us. So it's different and we need not a replacement, but just I feel like it just ignites something in us.
There definitely is something healing about a rainbow baby, 100%. But there also is that stark reality once they're here of like, yeah, but I'm still missing something. There's still something missing. And even when, my rainbow baby was 2 or 3 years old, I remember there were times where I would look in the back seat, like almost like I forgot someone. And you're like, oh yeah, yeah, it's the twins. Just
Yeah.
I don't know. Somehow you just have this knowing that it's those your babies that you're missing.
I feel like, we always feel their presence with us, even if they're not physically here. Like they're here with us every day, all the time.
Really are.
Do you include them in like your family photos or like family holiday traditions or anything like that?
We do have holiday traditions. I wouldn't say the photos necessarily because it's been 25 years, and at that time, and being raised by mothers, our mothers were of a different generation where we had to really on purpose keep things going that we wanted to, because their generation was like, we're just not going to talk about it. We're just going to put that away, and we're not going to talk about it because look at now, you've got your little girl and everything's fine and all is well in the world. So yeah, I was raised in that generation of my mother. So but we do. I have little like I have a Memorial Day thing that I like, and it killed me to buy Memorial Day flowers and put them on their grave and then have them die at some point over the summer. It just killed me. So now I put it on Memorial Day. I go and get them. I pick them up because I buy them special for them. And usually it'll be something symbolic of twins. And then I bring them home and I enjoy them all summer. And I just feel like they're with me all summer. Then we have my husband, one of his coworkers gave us this little pair of star candles when they were born. It was so cute. So those are always out. Like there's signs of it around my house. There's definitely signs of them everywhere, but yeah, it's it's definitely a unique, it's interesting. I love to hear what other people do
Yeah, if
because
everybody does something, a little bit different. And I think everything is so special, no matter what it is. I'm like, oh, I love it. Like, I love, just when people have little touches around their house or just little, even if it's not something that's like blatantly like has their baby's name on it, just a picture of a flower, a picture of anything. I think it's special.
I do too. I think those are fun. And I take pictures of everything. But so that's me. I'm the one who takes picture, when you crack the egg and there's the double yolk. That's me. I take a picture of it. I'm like, that's my sign. I'm keeping that. So I do have a little photo album in my pictures of like all of the little signs, the little double flower buds or any, I can find doubles in anything and feel like that's my sign and I need to take a picture of it. So
I
that's my
love
thing.
that though. I like
Yeah.
seeing like little signs from them where you're like, oh, like I don't know. To me, it just feels like they're saying, "Hey, I'm okay. Like I'm still watching out for you."
Yep. I'm still here. Yeah, it's a comforting feeling.
So were you able to get any like keepsakes from the hospital?
I did. Yeah, they did. They did a bunch of pictures. We have the blankets, we have all the things. But yeah, it's just, and I do love it to see when people have like a little corner where they have a little memory box and the photos. And yeah, I know but we do have a lot of things.
I always feel sad when, I know not all hospitals are the same and, some will take pictures, some don't take pictures for you. And I just wish there was some kind of like standard. These are the things we do when somebody loses a baby. Because I feel like even if you don't think you want pictures, you want them later.
I love that. You're so right. The one thing I work a lot with stillbirth moms on is guilt, because I do remember I didn't want to see them. I didn't want to. And my husband was like, yes, you are. You're going to regret it if you don't. You're going to. And so I did. And now I'm so thankful. But a lot of moms choose not to and then feel guilty. Or they, wish that they would have done something different or taken a different kind of. I mean, you know how we just beat ourselves up as women, anyways. And that's the thing I always keep coming back to is you did the best you could for what you knew at that moment. You did the best. You made the best choice you could because, yeah, there is no right or wrong and there is no checklist. But you're right. I do think that they should just take those pictures and tuck them away in case somebody comes back someday and says, I wish I would have had that. But
Yeah, I feel like it's better to have them and never look at them than to not have them and wish you had them because you can't ever go back to that moment. Like those pictures, it's all we get.
well, and I'm gonna be real honest here. I didn't even invite my parents or my in-laws to see them. I don't know why. And I didn't have my boys see them. I don't know if it, I don't even know. Well, I guess because I didn't really think I wanted to. So I suppose I thought certainly no one else will. And now I do regret that. I wish they would have. I do have the pictures and they've seen it. We have all that, but I do have those. See, I know. We just always keep going back and trying to make it better. And you
I feel
just can't.
like no matter if we did everything perfectly, we would still find something that we did not like that we did or that we wish we would have done.
Because who wants to do any of this right? None of us want to do any of this right or at all. So
No, it's
yeah.
the worst thing ever. Please.
Yeah. So if we didn't do it correctly, I think it's okay.
So I know you said you grew up, more with the not talking about it. So what made you start talking about it more and sharing about it?
Well, yes. I actually, my parents' first child, so before I was born, they had a full-term stillbirth. So they did tell stories about her. We did know. They entertained any curiosity questions that we had about her. We visited her grave. So like this whole experience was already baked into me, never even before I even experienced it myself. So then I think that also played into me keeping it to myself when I had my loss because my mother, I don't want, how terrible to have experienced herself and then now her daughter's experiencing it. So I think I kept a lot of it to myself, which was not a good idea. That was a very bad idea. And yeah, so I think I just over the years, so I sorry, I'll back up. So I kept it to myself, and then I realized years later, I was at a business conference of all things, and they had a life coach there, and I thought, well, it's fine, but this is a business conference. What business does that life coach have being in there? And so we were doing vision boards one day for an activity, and everyone else was happily cutting out their little houses and cars and vacations and dream homes and all this stuff. And I was frozen solid. And I was like, but how do I know? Well, how do I know I could do that? How would I know to do that? Well, the life coach saw this happening in the crowd, and so she came over and she was like, so what happened in your life that didn't allow you to dream for the future or make plans for the future? And it hit me. And I knew, and she opened up a can of worms that could not be put back in because that's what I realized as I was living my life very cautiously because you don't know. I just had gone through this experience where you think one thing is going to happen and it doesn't. And it's just so disappointing that you never want to set yourself up for anything like that again. So you don't dream and you don't take chances and you don't, plan for anything except for what's happening right here and now. And boy, once I realized that, I just saw where it was happening in all areas of my life. And so that's when I just was like, you know what? I don't want anyone else to suffer this. I think when I had my loss, there was no don't even want to. There was no social media. There was barely any internet. Say anything about social media. So I was really at the mercy of just anyone who was willing to come and share their story with me. And it was really lonely. And it was really lonely. I felt very broken and damaged and really just too vulnerable to put myself out there in any way and actually live my life and tell my story and live my truth. So yeah, so that's kind of how it all started. And
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I love that you're like, oh, life coach. And then she's
yeah,
the one that,
I
because I
did.
feel
I
like
was
that always
like,
happens whenever I've done that before, where I'm like, oh, really? Like, what do you know? And then they like come and tell me something super profound. I'm like, dang it.
I know what. Yeah, because I was like, what would a life coach be doing at a business conference? That makes no sense. But guess what?
And you're
Yeah.
like, oh no, now you did it.
Yeah, how we do our business is how we do our life and how we, yeah, I mean, it was the most amazing thing that it happened when it did because it all fell into place and it allowed me to see where I was living small in my life, where I was overprotecting my children because I was so afraid.
Guilty.
Yeah, I was so afraid I was going to lose them too, and I overprotected and yeah, it just there was a lot more unprocessed grief than I ever thought there was.
I think people who have, well, I mean, people who have been through it too, I think you don't realize just in how many areas of your life and in how many ways it affects you. Like you think, okay, like I'm sad, I lost my baby, but then it changes you as a person. And I think sometimes we don't even realize that until we're like, oh my gosh, like I didn't used to be like this, you know?
Do you remember saying to yourself, I don't know if you did, but I think you probably did, but like, okay, well, I wonder when I'm going to be normal again.
Yeah.
I just want to
Yeah.
get back to normal. I just want to get back to
Oh, yes.
normal. And it's like, that's gone. She's
Yeah.
gone. This is your new normal. And you've got to, yeah, I think that's such a hard reality. And then you couple that with the society that we live in with our grandmas and our aunts and all these lovely, well-meaning people who tell us all of these terrible things like, "Oh, you'll just have another one. It's fine. You just need to move on." And it's really that's damaging when
Yeah.
you are in the middle of it because it's so real to you. And maybe they never saw your baby, but you did.
Yeah. And you felt them kicking and you felt them. I mean, they're a
Yeah.
real person. They have a name. They have, you know, they look
Yeah.
like you. They like they're your child.
It was, yes. So, yeah. So then you couple that, and then I think that's what makes a lot of women just feel like, they lied to themselves, like, well, I'm doing fine, I'm doing good, I'm feeling better, but then it manifests somewhere else.
It always does. You know, I think we talked about this too. Like you just try to stuff it down, but it's like
Right.
somewhere, you know, it's like when you're trying to contain something and a bubble keeps popping up and you push it down, but then it pops up over here. It's like it doesn't, yeah, it doesn't just go away.
I was just talking to a couple women this week who were had their rainbow baby, and then they were like, but I don't understand. Like, I love my baby. I'm so thrilled and happy and excited. But there's this part of me that still feels sad and guilty. And it's like, yes, yes, that
Yeah.
is your new life. Yeah.
Yeah, so many people think like, okay, you know, you have your rainbow and you're done, you're healed, move on. And it's like, no, that's not how it works
It
at
just
all.
isn't. I wish it was, but it doesn't.
I know. It's so much easier to not deal with the grief sometimes. Like, can we just like you said, let's go be normal again and just be sad when, you know, on the due date or the birth date. Like, does
Yeah.
it have to be
Yeah.
a constant ongoing thing?
Like, can I just schedule the times when I just burst into tears and it feels like for no reason? And no, you can't.
Yeah, I've tried that. I've heard, you know, people say, "You'll just schedule your time." I was like, that doesn't work for me. It just comes out when it wants to come out. And it's usually at the worst time when I'm like with people or, you know, I'm like, why now?
Same. Yeah. Always. Yeah. Yeah, I remember crying when I took my kids to see Sesame Street one time because I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm just so thankful because you have a new awareness for your children when if you have children already or subsequent children when you experience this because you just realize how fleeting and precious life is. And I remember they were looking at me like, Mom, it's Sesame Street. Like, what are you doing? But it's just, yeah, you just get this heightened emotional awareness.
Yeah, I remember at a dance recital for my rainbow daughter, and she was dancing. I didn't realize this was a song she was dancing to until they played it, but it was the "You Are My Sunshine" song. And so I was like in tears, like crying, and I'm just like, oh, I can't handle this.
I
It was
know
just like a lot all at once.
it is. It's different for us. It
It
is.
is like
It's
these
different
things,
for,
these triggers, sometimes things you don't even expect.
yeah,
Those seem to
100%.
be the worst. Sometimes the things I expect, I'm okay with.
Isn't that yes. Well, I am aware of that too because I'm like, oh, here we go. We're going up to the anniversary. Gosh, it's 25 years. Like I can't even believe it. And then yeah, you kind of go into this dread of like, oh no, here it comes again. And then it seems like the day of, you're like, fine. It's the anticipation.
I find that the hardest too. The days leading up are the worst. And then
Yeah,
the day itself, like I'm still sad, but it's less than the other days. And then I feel
different.
like once you pass that day, you're like, oh, like I made it another year.
I did it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's still hard after that, but I just have that for at least a day, that feeling of, okay, I got through it, I did it. And then it starts the next year, you know?
Darn it. And then yeah, and then Thanksgiving comes and Christmas
Right.
and
Yeah. Do you find the holidays hard at all?
they're hard. Yes. Yeah, I think they still are because you can't help but look back and think, oh, what if? What would it have
Yeah.
been like? You know, how different would things be? Where would everyone be right now? And it's more, I would say after all of this time, it's more curiosity than sadness.
Yeah,
A
that
lot,
makes sense.
yeah,
It's like
it's
I
more,
wonder, like, what would it be like, you know?
yeah, what would it be like? How different would my life be? And then I think to be then follow it up with that appreciation, like, but this is how it is, and this is how it was meant to be for whatever reason, and I'm so grateful for this.
So you had two boys at the time that you lost the twins. How did
Uh,
they cope with it? Did they really understand like what was happening?
My youngest one did not. My oldest one did. And his teacher, he was in kindergarten, so his teacher would tell me different things that he would say. And I wouldn't say he was sad. Sort of like didn't act sad, but he would say things, like, well, I guess I'm not getting my sisters anymore. And he would say things that were sweet and we did take them. We had a funeral service. They did go there and participate in that. So I think they have very vague memories of that because they were so young. But yeah, I mean, they seemed to be fine. It's just it was hard. There were days where I thought, "Oh, thank goodness I have them because it makes me get out of bed." But then there were days that were like, "Ugh, I don't know if I can do this." And my husband at the time, he worked, in the hospital, so he worked some night shifts and I was there alone and it's a hard time. It was a really hard time.
Yeah, I remember when Jasmine was born, my son actually went to stay with my dad while we were going through that, and he stayed there for a couple of nights, and he needed to come home, but I was having such a hard time with it because I'm like, I can't. I felt like a bad mom because I couldn't like fully be present for him. It's like one of those dynamics that you don't really think about. It's not like you can just go home and be like, everything's fine. Like, you know, it's just a really hard balance.
It is it's incredibly hard. And I do, my heart goes out to any mom that's dealing with that because you do, you're, you just get in this kind of cycle where you're like, "Ugh, really, you're gonna cry because I didn't let you, whatever, stay up later or watch this TV show or, like, don't you realize what I'm going through? Of course they know. And you don't say that, but it's just like
Right.
on the scale of crying and being sad and throwing tantrums of things, it just, yeah, it was hard.
And then that mom guilt that always gets you, like,
Instantly. Yes, that's always there. That never disappoints, does it? It's always there.
yeah, and I feel like we feel it too about our babies that aren't here too, because we still want to parent them and we still look for ways to parent them, even though that may look different than parenting our living children. But
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like we compare ourselves like, oh, well, this person's doing more over here. I don't talk about my baby as much, or I don't do this as much. And so I feel like we still have that guilt.
That was the blessing of not having social media during my initial days for sure. Because yeah, there are a million different ways to do everything. None of it's right, none of it's wrong. And it's such grief is such a personal journey, but we really beat ourselves up all the way through it about especially, and I think having children too is another layer of it because you're just really judging yourself about what kind of a parent can I be to these kids when I'm doing this and I can't even focus, and it's a really tough time.
Now, did they figure out or tell you what the cause of your loss was?
So they were identical twins, a they shared a blood supply. So one of them had a cord wrapped around. So it was a cord accident, but because they were identical, there was once it happened to one, it instantly took the other two.
Oh, that's
So yeah.
those things. It's just,
Oh, it's just, I don't know. I get so frustrated with modern medicine because I think we have a lot of solutions for things that maybe don't matter as much, and yet they still can't see that. How do they still not see that cord? How is there not a, prevention of that at this point in time? But
yeah. So is that something that, I mean, that's just a random thing, right? That's not something that they say you're prone to in future pregnancies or anything like that.
yeah, no, just random, just something that happens that they can't predict. You can't reverse it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, of course, the second time around, I worried about something like that happening again too. And even though we had a planned C-section, you don't know. I mean, it's less likely to happen during a delivery, but you just getting through that pregnancy and
Yeah.
having that worry of there's some, this one thing that they can't predict or stop from happening.
And I feel like them saying, oh, it's rare, like it only happens in whatever percentage of pregnancies. I'm like, well, now I feel like it's for sure going to happen to me. So, because if you're in
Always.
that small percentage the first time, then you're like, well, I'm doomed,
Yes. Well, why wouldn't it? You can't tell. Right. And that's the hard thing too. No one can make any guarantees.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah.
with that, I felt so out of control of everything that happened. And I want to be in control of everything. So it was really hard to not like have any control over anything that happened with that. I don't know if that's something you struggled with.
Very hard for us type A people, isn't it? That that whole I don't have any control over it and I can't plan for it is a tough one.
So how did
Yeah.
you know that you were ready to try again after your loss?
I think I had I had, I mean, I think we all do. We just think I can't, like, I just, you wanted a baby, right? Like you were this close to having a baby, and here you are with no baby. Like, I need a baby. But there also was this thing that just kept going in my head, like, this cannot be this cannot be how it ends. This cannot be how my motherhood journey ends, because I was that mom. Like, I loved being a mom, and I couldn't wait to have children, and I love that part of my life. And I was like, I cannot have this be the last time. And then it was, of course, you get the go ahead from your doctor or whatever, but and then it was like, okay, well, if I don't do it now, I'm gonna chicken out. Like, if I have too long to think about this, I might chicken out, and then I'll regret that. So yeah, it was pretty soon afterwards to go through it all again. But I mean, you have to trust in timing, and that
Kind of
everything
one
happens.
of those things you just have to like jump in or else like just
That's
jump
how
in,
I was.
don't
I
think
was like,
about it,
I
just do it.
gotta do it, or yeah, I've either got to jump in or be all the way out. And I knew I didn't want to be all the way out.
Yeah.
So
I feel like
yeah.
there's never a time where you ever feel like 100% ready or like not afraid. You just
I
have to,
so
I guess, feel like your desire to have a baby is stronger than all of these awful, horrible feelings over here.
it is, boy, that is the ultimate exercise in positivity, right? Like, okay, well, I'm gonna just trust that this is gonna turn out better this time, or it's gonna actually happen. I know that's it. We put a lot of trust in not knowing and not having
Yeah.
that guarantee for what we hope to achieve with it. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's really hard to stay positive throughout, the trying to get pregnant, the pregnancy itself, the birth, like all of it. I don't think I breathed, like you said, I didn't breathe until she was born and like on my chest. And I'm like, she's here. Like, oh my God. I was just like crying. They were trying to talk to me. I'm like, I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, I
it's a
know
lot.
that was unbelievable, wasn't it? I know. I just remember telling her you know, like, I've waited a long time for you. Because I think at that time I was pregnant. Oh, I don't know. I can't, I figured it out one time, like 16 months or whatever. And within, a certain amount of time, I felt like a very long pregnancy for her.
And then after that, you just decided, like, we're done. I'm not doing this again. Or
My husband was like, done.
yeah.
That's it. We're at, yeah, like, this is it. We've got three healthy kids. We're done.
That's my husband too. He's like, no more.
Yeah, I probably couldn't have been trusted with that decision, so it's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. They have to be the voice of reason sometimes, right?
Truly, physically, I think you know, that was my then fourth C-section. I think, yeah, probably my doctors were very happy to have it be the end too,
So when
because you
did
don't
you?
want to get at risk.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Mm.
So when did you start coaching other women?
So it was, I mean, honestly, I think I always have, because I would always, if I saw someone who had had a loss, I would send them a note. I would reach out to them, and there was always, it was sort of always going on unofficially in the background. But it's been like 4 or 5 years, I would say, that I've been like more like focusing on this space. I was doing other life coaching and business coaching, and then it was always there for me that I really wanted to. I remember thinking that as soon as I was starting to recover, like, I want to be able to have a way to help other people through this, because it is so just lonely. So yeah, it's been probably the past, 5 or 6 years that I've been focusing and working solely on and with lost moms with stillbirth. And yeah, and it's just so rewarding because when you are able to talk to someone who's gone through it, there's this whole understanding that maybe you're not getting, maybe you have really supportive family members, but they're still not quite understanding it. Or maybe you have a great therapist, but unless she's been actually through this, it's not quite clicking. So I think women, like maybe they're getting some help, maybe they feel like they have support, but until they actually are with someone that has lived experience, it just that can take that up that notch of healing
Yeah.
that you need.
Yeah, it's definitely a different dynamic for someone who's been through it versus someone who hasn't. They can try to be as supportive as they can, and it's just not the same. It just will never be the same.
No, no. There just is that there just is that missing piece sometimes for people. So that's what I love that I'm able to bring to these to help.
Does it ever bring back up your feelings of grief, like talking to other people, hearing their stories?
It does, but it's and I think I needed some time, that I needed that period of time to like get my own kids raised and things like that. But yes, it does at times, but almost in a like I was saying earlier, like you just like almost in like that out of body experience. Like I can't believe I remember feeling that exact same way, and I can't believe like almost having an appreciation for how far you've come
Yeah,
at this point.
that makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense. I mean,
Yeah, like I
definitely
feel
grief changes.
yes, you feel the grief and I mean you just cry with other women as they're in their first when you're first meeting them and they're so defeated and hopeless and you can just feel it again. But then there's that piece of me that's like, but I know it can be better. I know it can.
That is the gift of time is, is seeing exactly that. Because even now, just like talking about it and like, I remember how I felt like in those days after, when we found out, like that kind of thing. Like those feelings, I think they just stick with us
They
always.
never
We can just go right back to like that day.
Well, and don't you think too, do you like when you hear of someone else that's gone through it, like your heart just goes into a different place. I can't even explain it, but
Yeah.
you're right there with them,
Yeah.
you know, because it's
I know.
so baked into you and you can feel that feeling with them. And I think that's something that is so valuable.
Yeah. It's
They're not
something I wish I could like take away. Like, I wish you didn't have to feel this because it really sucks. And I'm so sorry,
I know I just hate it that someone else has to feel that way, but they don't have to do it alone.
Yeah. I was like you when shortly after my loss, I felt the same way. Like, I want to help people because this is awful. And yeah, same, like I had support, but I still felt so alone. And so, yeah, it kind of led me down the same path to help other people. So, yeah, it's just interesting that that's, one of the first things that pops up, I guess.
It is, isn't it? Because yeah, it's not like I didn't set out to do that. It was just something that was always running in the background. And then I just was like, you know what? I just know that I have so much more to give to this space and it's needed.
Yeah.
There's not enough, there's not enough resources.
And it's just so like fulfilling, more fulfilling than
Anything.
corporate jobs and all
Oh,
that other
yeah.
stuff. I'm like, I
Yeah.
get nothing out of this, but like talking and helping people who have gone through this horrible thing is
Yeah.
just rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just there's something so comforting about just being with someone and listening.
So if people wanted to connect with you, where would they go for that?
So I have a website, it's jennifersen.com. I have a podcast called Navigating Baby Loss. So those are probably the two of the easiest places to find me, where I am all the time. I mean, I'm hit and miss on social media, I have to admit. I am trying to be better, but I do have an Instagram that everything I have. I do have a YouTube channel with some videos. So everything's at Navigating Baby Loss.
Social media is a lot of work to keep up with.
And I know, I just want my energy to work with the women I work with, not to be creating social media, but it's there.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story with us.
Oh, thank you. And thank you so much for what you do and the amazing platform that you provide for people to share their stories. And it's so helpful to others.
Thank you so much, Jenn, for sharing your story with us. As we talked about earlier, there is really no guidebook for what to do after loss. Doctors and medical staff don't share information about what to do if a loss happens. That means that so many of us are left not knowing what to do or what to expect when we go through that loss. Even if we have been through a loss before, we may not know what to expect if we go through it again. Every loss can be such a different experience, even if it happens to the same person. There is such a fine line, it seems, between not wanting to scare people versus actually having the information out there that people desperately need. I'm not really sure what the answer is. I just wish there was a way to help everyone going through it know what to expect. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. If you like the show, please leave a review or rating on Apple or Spotify. It only takes a moment and really helps the show reach more loss and infertility families. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, we are all in this together.